Spiritually fit so that you can always find it in yourself, to go deep. Mentally fit so that you're listening to blend.
You're tuned into Lightsoutclass, your number one electronic music station in God knows where. I welcome you to another episode of Blend. Here on Lightsoutclass, it is a pleasure of mine to be here sitting with you and talking and interacting with you on this episode of Blend. I really want to say I'm glad to be okay. That's what I really want to say. I'm glad to be here. I want us to relax, to sit back as we get into our topics of conversation. As always, here on Blend, it promises to be another very entertaining and educative one as we talk and listen to electronic music. Yeah, on your number one electronic music station. And God knows where my name is Lázougi, and the song that you are currently listening to, the song that I used in setting the stage for our conversation on this episode of Blend is called, I call it Accidental Lover. I hope you had a wonderful time listening to that one. Let's get into it quickly because we have a lot to touch on this episode of Blend. As always, I've got electronic music right here on my playlist that we are going to be digging into as we have our discussion. In case you're just joining in and you're wondering what it is we do here on Blend, on Blend, on Blend, on Lightsoutclass, or should I say in Lightsoutclass. We come together to talk about social issues, issues happening around us in society. We talk about these issues and take time to give these issues an in-depth analysis to discover how these issues affect us in our everyday lives and how to navigate ourselves around these issues. We also tend to go deeper into the philosophical discussions that border around the social issues in order for us to have a more, should I say, in-depth understanding from the analysis that we have of these issues and how to, like I said earlier, navigate ourselves as we understand these issues happening in our daily lives. Okay. My name is Lázougi. Once again, I welcome you to Blend, and the topic of our conversation on this episode of Blend will be looking at how feelings are named and created. That's what we're talking about on this episode of Blend. How feelings are named and created. I'll be continuing from episode 3, that is chemical imbalance, where I shared with you that the quality of an individual's life on a day-to-day basis, and even narrowing it down to a minute-to-minute basis, even further narrowing it down to a second basis, or should I say intervals. Okay, the quality of these intervals are dependent on the balance of 3 key hormones in each and every individual's body. Okay, so the quality of life, how well a person's life is, and how poorly a person's life is, or the quality of a person's life on a daily basis, on a minute to minute, second to second intervals, okay, is dependent on the balance of these 3 key hormones. These hormones, as I shared in episode 3, that is chemical imbalance. These three hormones are testosterone, serotonin, and dopamine. Okay, so the balance of these three key hormones in each individual's life will determine how poorly or how well this person's life is as he or she lives his or her life. Okay, so that was what we discussed on episode 3, chemical imbalance. And to continue from that, okay, because that was the starting point for us to really get into what we'll be talking about today, what I'll be sharing with you today. Excuse me. I'll be using what we shared and what we discussed on that episode to really buttress what I'll be sharing with you today, okay? So these three hormones are responsible for the quality of a person's life. So testosterone is responsible for making the individual strong, while serotonin is a hormone that is responsible for keeping the individual calm, and dopamine is a hormone that is responsible for the experience of pleasure that this individual will have on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute, second-per-second intervals. Okay, so if these three hormones are out of balance, and what I mean by out of balance is if there are larger quantities of one of these hormones in relation to other hormones, it puts the individual out of balance. So there's an imbalance there's an imbalance. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Okay, there's an imbalance, and what this will cause in this individual is it will affect this individual's life. So using testosterone as an example, if there's too much testosterone in an individual and less serotonin, and also this person is not able to release dopamine as often as he or she needs to, that is the pleasure the pleasure nerves are not being stimulated as often as possible, what will happen is you will find this individual often being agitated because there's too much testosterone in relation to serotonin, which should have balanced. I'm still looking for the word for that. Okay, I'm still looking for the word. We should have balanced. Should I use equation until I get a more appropriate word? Okay, so which should have balanced the equation? Okay, so serotonin is responsible for making an individual calm. Okay, excuse me. So serotonin is responsible for making the individual calm, while testosterone is responsible for making the individual strong and able to perform activity, manual labor, and other things that require energy. Okay, so serotonin is the hormone that is released in your body when you sleep. So we talked about this extensively. I don't want to really repeat all of that in this episode because it's going to take a lot of time. I'm just going to use it as a foundation for what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of this episode, and that is how feelings are named and created. Okay. So now, as these hormones are inherent in all of us, as okay, I need to do a double check on something here. Give me a minute, okay? I'll be back shortly. Just give me a second, yeah. No more than 30 seconds. Yeah. Now, since this hormones are inherent in all of us, that is, in each and every one of us humans, these hormones are found and are inherent in each and every one of us. At least the capacity for our bodies to stimulate and release these hormones is inherent in each and every one of us as human beings. So what happens is that on a larger scale in our communities and in also in the general society, in our communities and in the general society at large, we find these three hormones responsible for the playing out of the daily activities happening again on a per second interval, because these hormones are inherent in us as humans. So we find these hormones responsible for the way life plays out on a per second basis as human beings, as a society, as a community. These three key hormones are responsible for most of the, if not all of the activity that can be regarded as or can be described as our reality. So if you look at it closely, or if you look at this, or let's just take a close sample of a small community, or it's like, let's take a sample of a small community, or let's say a village, for instance, and let's take 10 individuals from this community or from this village who, for one reason or another, have low testosterone or low testosterone and very high amounts of dopamine release, and but at the same time they are not able to release as much serotonin as possible, which should make them calm and able to sleep, because serotonin is also the hormone responsible for you being able to sleep calmly, and you being able to have a good night's rest. That's why it's very important and key in each individual's body. So we have this community of this community, and we look at out of this community we look at 10 people with high amounts of dopamine. Okay, let's say just moderate amounts of serotonin. That means they're able to get fairly a small amount of sleep, not too little, not too great, not like the usual 8 hours, but the serotonin is just enough to just make them sleep fairly, but not enough testosterone in them for them to be able to work as hard as they want to or as they need to contribute to the general contributions needed to be made within the community. But they also have the ability to stimulate their dopamine at very high levels or to very high levels. And what is dopamine? That is just you being able to that is just the hormone responsible for you being able to experience pleasure. So experiences that give you pleasure causes dopamine to be released in your brain, which makes you want to repeat those experiences even more, because the release of dopamine is causes like a high in a human being, and it's a very pleasurable high. Okay, this is something that is fairly knowledgeable to some of us. So we look at these 10 people. They are not able to work as they need to because they have low testosterone. They don't get the proper amount of sleep that they need to get. But for some reason, they are always experiencing high amounts of dopamine release. And what does that do? Most of the time, dopamine release can make you laugh. Okay, when you're watching comedy, for example, and the jokes are funny and the comedian is really cracking you up, what's happening in your brain is like there are high amounts of dopamine being released as this is happening. Okay, as the show is getting on, as you are being cracked up by the comedian, there are high amounts of dopamine in your brain being released. So this causes laughter. So amongst these 10 people, you find them consistently on the verge of laughter. Okay, they always have this happy look on their faces. They're always smiling. They always seem to be pleased to see everybody. However, when it comes to doing community work, you find them wanting because of their low amounts of testosterone. So that is just for these 10 people. Okay. So based on the balance of these 3 hormones within these 10 people, you find them exhibiting some certain behavioral traits compared to another, say, 10 people within this community who have another another balance. Okay, you get what I'm saying? Okay, let's use a ratio, for example. Um, let's use okay, we have testosterone, serotonin, and dopamine. So if there's balance, it should be 1:1:1. Okay, but in this case, in the first example, we have let's say 3:0. Okay, 3:1 because they get a fair amount of sleep. But 3:1:5. Okay, so there's a lot of dopamine activity going on. Okay, let's say 2:1:5. Okay, then you have another set of people who have 5:3:1. That means they have very high testosterone in their body. Like this 10 set of people, these 10 people within this community, they have a very high testosterone. When it comes to activity, they are always at the forefront. They get, let's say, 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, 5:3:1. But for some reason, there's not enough stimulation or enough release of dopamine in their brain, so they are not always smiling. Okay, they are always frowning because of this non-release of dopamine. But when it comes to work, you find them, they're like very, very, very agile men and women within this community. So you can see that there's a different set of balance for different set of people. Okay, that's why earlier in the broadcast I said let's leave it at that. Okay, let's use that word balance, okay, so that we can really grasp until I get a more appropriate word, to substitute that. So we have now we tend to see behavioral traits, okay, in different set of people within these communities, depending on how balanced these three hormones are in their bodies. Okay, so you tend to see different behavioral traits. Okay, the guys that have 5:3, that's a testosterone being in 5, serotonin being in 3, but the dopamine being in 1. You find them exhibiting different behavioral traits compared to those other guys who have low testosterone, fair amounts of serotonin, and but very, very high stimulation of dopamine. Maybe for some reason they're always cracking up and they're always laughing, and people just wonder why are they always so goofy all the time, always smiling. So there's different behavioral patterns and traits according to how balanced these hormones are in each and every individual within the community. So what we're going to look at next is how these behavioral patterns are categorized using the language of communities. So this is like the first section of our topic. Okay, so the topic once again is how feelings are named and created. So we are currently looking at how feelings are named. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how these behavioral patterns, these behavioral traits that are attributed to different sets, these two sets of 10 individuals within the communities. We're going to look at how language categorizes these behavioral traits and how we are able to relate to these behavioral traits with one another in this community. Okay, so that's what we'll be looking at right after this musical break. We're going to be listening to this song. I call this song Silai 24. Let's enjoy this one. We're back after this music break. My name is Lázougi. This is Lightsoutclass, your #1 electronic music station in God knows where. Welcome back from that music break. You're tuned in to Lights Out Class, your number one electronic music station in God knows where, and this is Blend episode 6 to be precise. The song you listen to during the music break, I call that one Lightsoutclass. And before the music break, I was about to share with you how language is used to categorize the behavioral traits that are exhibited by individuals within the communities based on the balance of the three key hormones inherent in each and every individual's body. That is, in each and every one of us, these hormones are inherent, or at least the ability for us to stimulate and release these hormones and utilize these hormones for our day-to-day, second-to-second, minute-to-minute use. That is how important, because I'm making emphasis on minute-to-minute, second-to-second, because once you realize that these um, three hormones are what um, determines the quality of life a human lives, it becomes essential for one to be able to, at one's best capacity, put it in a balance. And going back to uh, episode 3, chemical imbalance, I share with you in detail how that can be achieved, and I'm also going to uh, reiterate some of my key points that I shared in that episode as we get on with the show. Okay, so first of all, we need to really understand how language, as language evolves, is used to categorize these behavioral traits of people. One thing we also need to really, one thing we need to be aware of is that these behavioral traits stay consistent in humans. However, the language used to describe these behavioral traits varies. Okay, so going back to the first set of 10 individuals who are always uh, always on a high, okay, always having this high stimulation of dopamine in their brains for whatever reason. Okay, I'm not going to go into moral reasons. Okay, so we're just looking at scientific knowledge here. Okay, so for whatever reasons, because some of you might insist that too much of dopamine and too much stimulation of, okay, so that can be a discussion for us to have, and for us to really have that. Okay, um I'd like you to use the live chat box to share your thoughts and weigh into the conversation. So that would be very good to see. Okay, so as we get along with the show, it will be very, very nice, and it will be good to see you weigh in with your thoughts using the live chat box. Okay, so um, looking at the first set, we have this couple of guys, high dopamine release, but very low testosterone, unable to do much work. Fair amount of serotonin release on a day to day, so they can sleep, say a couple of hours, but not getting the full hours of sleep. You find them exhibiting traits uh, that that are linked to high dopamine release. Again, going back, you find them always smiling for whatever reason. Some of them are always grinning. Don't know why. The high dopamine release makes them giggy or giddy. Okay, so these behavioral traits over time are categorized by society using language. So for us English folks, we call it smiling. Somebody somewhere in Italy we call it something else. Okay, I'm not Italian, so I should probably learn Italian. But nah. Us English folks call it smiling. Uh, it would be nice to also know what you call laughter in your own language, your own native dialect. Okay, so due to the high release of dopamine, you find them, smiling all the time. So language and society uses language to categorize this behavioral trait exhibited based on the balance of these hormones. Okay, so you looking at the other set of guys, find them due to the high amount of testosterone, they're always agile, so they're always active. So um, language evolves to call such people strong. However, strong is relative to geographical location. That is, the language for strong in different geographical locations is different. However, the behavioral trait remains the same based on the balance of these hormones that are inherent in all of us. So that is how language categorizes this behavioral traits that are exhibited, and we're able to relate with each other because these hormones are inherent in each and every one of us, and we have at different points exhibited these traits as well. So whenever we hear, let's say a friend comes over to your house now and tells you that another friend of yours was laughing over some dumb joke, you can easily relate because you too have laughed over some dumb joke yourself, because both of you have released at one point or are capable of releasing dopamine. So both of you can relate. You can relate with other people based on you sharing the same chemical balance. Okay, you get what I'm saying? So you can relate with people that are strong if your balance of testosterone in relation to those other two are also like this too. So you can relate with them, but you can't relate with some other guys who don't have the same balance as yours. You get what I'm saying? So that is how feelings are named, and that is how language evolves to categorize these behavioral traits that are exhibited as feelings. Now let's look at a third set of guys who, let's say, for whatever reason, have low testosterone, low serotonin, and low dopamine. That is very low, should I say, very low balance. What will happen is, due to the low testosterone, they'll be unable to do work. Due to the low serotonin in their bodies, they will be unable to sleep well, which will result in them being agitated, being lethargic. Due to the low release and stimulation of dopamine in their brains, they are always unhappy. What you find is depression, or at worst, some life-threatening sickness due to um, the low stimulation or the out of balance of these three hormones. Now you find these people exhibiting another different behavioral trait entirely, and society also categorizes these traits, these behaviors, using language as well. So you can say they are tired. I feel tired. They feel tired. Why are they always feeling tired? Tired can be something different in your own language, but the behavior stays consistent. So the name of the feeling is different, varies, but the feeling itself stays consistent. That's why everyone can relate to feeling tired, whatever geographical location you may be, or whatever language you call tired in your own native dialect. We all can relate to what it means like to feel tired based on the inherent nature of these three hormones in our bodies. Now let's move on to how feelings are created, because now I really do hope you've now we're going to be looking at how feelings are created. Okay, and before that, I want to be sure that you have somewhat grasped, if not completely, because it may require some time to think about it in your spare time. However, we are going to be moving on to how feelings are created. Okay, I'm really trying to put one or two things in order here. Okay, yeah. So once again, I do encourage you to share with us what you have to share based on what we have talked about in the past couple of minutes, in the past 15 minutes. So your thoughts, your opinions, your suggestions, and your contributions to what we have been talking about, what I've been sharing with you, will be very much appreciated as you do so via the live chat box here on Lights Out Class, your number one electronic music station in God knows where. Now, in today's modern world, due to the advancement of medical science, it has become accessible to us as human beings the means to be able to balance these three hormones for ourselves directly using using medicine, and indirectly too, because most people are still, should I say, unaware and unable to do it directly for themselves. So what happens is, as they're unable to do it directly for themselves, it is being done indirectly to them by someone else. I'll really elaborate on what I'm talking about here. Okay, so because of advancements in medicine and in science in general, it is easy and very accessible for one to be able to build testosterone, the hormone testosterone, in his or her body. Okay, there are uh, drugs, there are there are medicine, there are there are supplements, okay, to take to be able to build testosterone in your body. Okay, there are a lot of medicine available for anyone who wants to build testosterone presently. To do that, okay, there are a lot of supplements. There's the opportunity for you to exercise and also take these supplements. Also, if you're feeling stressed out and unable to sleep, unable to have a good night's rest, there are drugs, there are medicine for you to take to be able to sleep properly. Okay, there are also other natural things you can do to be able to have a good night's rest. That is, if you are not predisposed to taking medicine for it, which is okay. And for the release of dopamine to their other activities, the activities in today's modern world that stimulates the release of dopamine and gives one pleasure. Okay, for example, social media, the entirety of social media is built on that is a dopamine release. Okay, so in today's modern world, there there are ways and means for each and every one of us to be able to put these three hormones in balance. But like I said earlier, while it is not being done consciously by the individual, it is being done indirectly to the individual. While you're not working out consciously or taking those necessary stimulants you need to take to build testosterone, or eating those natural food you need to take to build testosterone, while you're not doing it consciously, while you're not doing the necessary things you need to do um, to to get to have a good night's rest, while you're not doing those um, natural things. Some of you meditate in order to be calm. Meditation does also release serotonin. It is known for that. Dopamine release too. Some people have hobbies which, while they do these hobbies, they release dopamine. They find pleasure in those hobbies. While the individual is not doing those things consciously, it is being done to the individual indirectly. And you may ask, by who? Who is indirectly putting the individual's hormones off balance or out of balance? Who does that? Who will deliberately do that to an individual? The clues are everywhere for us to see if we look closer at the reality on ground. Okay, let's take an individual who is unable to sleep properly for whatever reason. You will have a very stressful job, you're unable to sleep after you come back from work, your boss is ultra demanding for whatever reason. Due to the ease of access to modern medicine, one can just go to one can go to your doctor and let him or her know your problem, and you get prescribed a drug to help you sleep. You get prescription medicine that will help you sleep at night. So it works for the first 1 week. You're able to sleep. Okay. So you have solved the problem of not being able to stimulate enough serotonin in your body for you to be able to sleep. However, you still need to put testosterone in the balance, because even though you're able to sleep now, you still need to be able to do other activities. And with low testosterone in your body, you are limited in the activities that you are able to do as an individual. So you still need to put that in the balance as well. And also the stimulation and release of dopamine as well. So you went to the doctor and the doctor gave you the prescription medicine for serotonin to be released so that you can sleep. So you are sleeping fine, but you're still very tired, because that is the truth. Too much of sleep over time tends to make, we can all relate with this. Okay, it makes us lethargic. You are lethargic. So you go back to the doctor. You tell the doctor, I'm always tired. Some doctors, not all doctors, will give you proper advice and say you need to exercise, you need to go out and walk, you need to go out in the mornings, you need to go out in the evenings, you need to do some exercise to build up muscle so that you can be able to do further activities that you were previously limited in doing. At first, the individual agrees and tries to do these exercises a couple of days maybe, and goes back to the doctor and says, Doctor, can you give me something that will help me? And the doctor looks at you and gives you another tablet, another medicine, in addition to the one you were given before. Over time, a cycle is developed, and you find, especially in the Western world now, you find that this consistent back and forth tends to put the hormones of the individual out of balance. Now, what the doctor realizes is, not all doctors, okay, but what some of them realize is they can indirectly put those hormones of yours in whatever balance that they want it to be via the tablets and the drugs that they give you when you willingly go to them by yourself. They can put those hormones in whatever balance that they choose to. They can give you drugs that will reduce your testosterone, increase your serotonin, and reduce your dopamine. And you will feel a certain way, because those hormones are stimulated in a balance that will trigger those feelings, and you will exhibit those certain behaviors. You exhibit those behaviors that are linked to the balance of those hormones. Okay, let's just take it one step at a time. Okay, let's just take it one step at a time. This is 2022, and feelings have become more important now than ever. The word feelings is now everywhere. Okay, it's now like one of the driving forces in conversations these days. Feelings, feelings. You have to pay attention to their feelings. You keep hearing the word feelings, feelings. Decisions have to be made based on feelings. You have to respect people's feelings. But what most of us don't realize is these feelings can be artificially stimulated in today's modern world. If you as an individual is not doing it consciously to yourself, somebody is doing it indirectly to you. When when medical science realizes that with a simple tablet they can put an individual's hormones in whatever balance that they want the person to be in, they can create certain behaviors that are based on those hormonal balance. And that is what we are seeing in 2022 now, and why feelings are being prioritized over facts and over previously laid down iron laden facts. Again, I told you earlier 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 in this episode, I shared with you that within communities you can have 10 or more people. 10 is a minute number. That was just an example. You can have hundreds, thousands of people exhibiting certain behavioral traits based on their hormonal balance, and they can all relate with each other because they all have these hormones, or we all have these hormones inherent in each and every one of us. So every time you go to the pharmacy or every time you go to the counter, you need to be asking yourself, what drugs are they giving? What is in those drugs? What are they giving you? You need to be very, very conscious about how those drugs affect you as an individual. Do you take some drugs and you just certainly just feel tired? But it solves one problem but creates another problem. Why? Why does it have side effects? Why do you have to go back to take more of those same drugs? Why does it feel as if today you are tired, tomorrow you're energetic based on the drugs you're taking? Who is giving you those prescription drugs? Once these feelings are stimulated in individuals of high number and they're able to relate with themselves, they create communities where they prioritize these feelings because these feelings are what bring them together in the first place, and what makes them able to relate with each other. You outside of the community might be weird, out of sync, out of place. But what you don't know is people within those communities actually have these legitimate feelings, and they all are either directly or most of the time indirectly being stimulated to express those feelings. There are kids who have been put on some certain drugs to help them stay calm. There are parents today who, once their child is playful, excessively playful, they put them on drugs. You see a kid who used to be very, very agile, suddenly quiet. Some parents put their kids on some stuff just to make them sit in one place. Modern science has given us the ability to be able to do that. To be able to put these three hormones in whatever balance it needs to be. And certain behavioral traits will be exhibited based on the balance of these hormones, and communities will be formed as these behavioral traits are shared amongst individuals till they can relate with themselves. The key is in being able to consciously put these three hormones in a balance by your own decisions, and not have them out of balance indirectly by someone else's, out of your own unconscious decisions. Look outside and see for yourself how this affects society. My name is Lázougi, and this has been Blend episode 6 here on Lightsoutclass, your number one electronic music station in God knows where. I've really had a wonderful time on this episode of Blend, talking with you, sharing with you this information, hearing from you, and also listening to electronic music here on your number one electronic music station in God knows where. For more talk, music, and conversation, tune in for next episode. And to be part of it, make sure you subscribe and also turn on the live notification, the notification bell, so that you get the notifications when we go live for subsequent broadcast. Okay, so that's it for this episode of Blend. Take care of yourself. Till next time, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to turn on the notification bell, because that's the only way you're gonna be notified about the subsequent broadcast. Blend episode 7. Take care.
You're listening to your number one electronic music station. Yeah, in goodness where. You're listening to the number one electronic music station in God knows where.